Hey everyone, how's it going? So what am I working on now? Well, I got a 2016 Buick Enclave. I just like to put a little spin on it. Anyway, customer brought it in. It's got 85,700 miles on it. Customer brought it in, check engine light, and they said that the AC works sometimes it doesn't. Okay, could that be related to the check engine light? Possibly, sure. So I got the scanner hooked up, and I'm actually running through it right now, and I see what could possibly cause the AC to cut in and out. So let's take a look and see what's going on here. I don't know. I'm only looking at the first page. I did like a full scan of everything. So let's look and see what we got here. So right off the bat, engine coolant temperature, ECT, the sensor circuit high voltage. Sensor circuit high voltage. Next, engine coolant temperature, sensor circuit intermittent. Okay, well, yep. Those things can cause the problem of the AC cutting in and out. Evap emissions, small leak, system flow during non-purge. A lot of times with that code, there is a issue with the purge valves on these have a tendency to get stuck and hang open slightly. So that's probably the reason for that. It's just experience. I've seen so many of them over the years. But the reason for the coolant temperature is if the computer thinks the engine's overheating, it'll shut the AC down. Follow? Like it doesn't know the difference. If it thinks the engine's way too cold, like let's say it thinks it's negative 40 degrees, well, if it's negative 40, why on earth would you need AC? So I've seen that before. Let's see what other codes this has just to be on the safe side. All right, so lost communication with remote function, front door, window, motor, calibration. A lot of these things just don't matter. Tire pressure sensors, yeah. Really, none of that really matters. It's those that I'm concerned with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create the report. I'm going to share that to my email. This way I have it. So one thing I really, like I said, this scanner does pretty much everything my Snap-on will do. And my Snap-on won't do this. And that's one thing I really like about this. So I send this to my email. And there it goes, generated the report. So in the actual report itself that I get, the email, it'll show, like here where it says abnormal, it didn't open up that tab, but in the email it actually opens the tab. See, just like that. So that's what I'll see in the email. All right, let's actually pull this in the shop. I want to check wiring harness and stuff like that. It's possible it's just a bad ECT. But we're going to address that first before we start looking at AC. Could there be a separate problem with the AC? Sure, absolutely. It could have an issue where it's low on charge. Who knows? Could have a situation where it builds up too much pressure because the cooling fan's not working correctly. Because there's a restriction or an obstruction in front of the radiator, in front of the condenser. There's a whole bunch of different possibilities, but you want to address that engine coolant temp code first, because that could be the whole problem. So let's get this thing inside. Now, one thing, I don't know if you could hear it, the cooling fans are on full blast, and the coolant temperature gauge is reading low. See that? So what I'm going to do is let me actually look in the scanner and get to data. Hang on a second. The real nice thing about the scanner is you could select the different parameters. Like I want to see the AC compressor, clutch relay command, ambient air temperature, and engine coolant temperature. Okay, so let's go there. It's actually showing 183.2 degrees. Oh, and now the gauge is reading correctly. And you notice the cooling fans are not on. The AC was not working before. I just heard the compressor kick on. And yes, I have cold air coming out now. Okay. So I'm curious if I could see if freeze frame data is going to show what the temperature was reading. Let's go back, because I know I can look at freeze frame data. Read freeze frame. Let's go here. Does it show? Nope, it won't show what the actual... Dang it. Well, that stinks. Alright, so... Let me just go back to... I just want to see the mileage. So there was an intake air temperature sensor circuit high voltage. Like somebody probably disconnected it 8,000 miles ago to do something, probably an air filter. Engine coolant temperature circuit intermittent. Let's just see. Yeah, see, this one happened 17,000 miles, 19,000 miles ago. Yeah. So, all right. What we're going to have to do is we're going to go underneath the hood and we're going to look at the coolant temperature sensor and see is it possible that the wiring is messed up, is the sensor messed up? You never know. So, put this in park and let's go check. So up under the hood here, I don't even recall where the coolant temperature sensor is. I'm going to have to look it up and see if I can't figure that out. Let me go do that. Okay, so it's supposed to be located down here on the head, and it is actually, oops, hold on. It is right next to the dipstick there. See that like aluminum foil looking stuff right next to the dipstick? That's the coolant temperature sensor. So if I had to venture a guess, I'm going to say I probably have a bad sensor. But what I'm going to do is, we pull the dipstick out. The problem is, the motor is hot. So trying to change a coolant temperature sensor is going to be a nightmare. So now the engine's cool. It's 113 degrees. It's funny because it's 113. The time is 113. My employee number at the dealership was 113. Anyway, rings a bell, that's all. So I just want to show you something here real quick. So down here, I pulled the dipstick out. You pull that aluminum foil cover up. Now there's really no way for me to get in here and film this, because as you see, I can block everything with just my hands. But I could see the sensor down below it. But I want to disconnect the connector so I can actually see what in the heck I'm looking at there. So let me get that disconnected and then I'll show you that. So there it is, it's disconnected, and now it's reading -40. Now I'm going to short it out. Oh, the key is on, just so you know. Now I'm going to short that out, and then let's see what the reading goes to. I got a feeling it's just a bad sensor that's skewed. I did look, because I saw some of this stuff, thinking maybe mice got in here, which they did. I mean, you can see here, but I don't see that they actually damaged anything. So the easiest thing to do, honestly, would be just to change the sensor, but let's just jump it and see what the reading actually goes to. So now I have the connector jumped. Now these pins just slid in very gently. If you're going to do something like this, especially on the face where it plugs into something like the sensor or whatever, if you have to force it in, don't do it. Because what happens is you spread out the terminal, the female portion of the terminal spreads out and you make a bad contact. But these slid in very gently and very easily, so I'm not too concerned about it. And now we see the temperature is 302. So now let's just slide them out. See how easy that came out? Now we're back to -40. And I did wiggle the harness around and stuff like that, and nothing changes with me moving the harness. So I am not concerned. Like, I grabbed everything there. I'm not concerned that it's anything other than the temperature sensor. So we're going to get a temperature sensor for this, and we're going to put that in. I may not be here to do that job. I got to see. I actually have to leave for a doctor's appointment. So if it comes in and they need to get it done today, then Kirk will probably take over and put the new sensor in. If not, then tomorrow I will put that in. So let's find out what happens, and then I'll finish this video. Okay, so through the magic of television, video, whatever you want to call it, it's the very next day. They did not have time to do this yesterday, so here's the new sensor. Now, one thing I neglected to do yesterday, and I'm glad they didn't install it today, was I take this tool. I have a couple of different ones like this. Yeah, whatever. I see it backwards, so I'm not sure if you're seeing it correctly. And basically what it is I have a bunch of different ones. I purchased these years ago from, actually, I was able to buy these things from the GM Training Center. And these are basically terminal tests. You can use these so you don't have to spread the terminals. Remember I showed you that with the little pin? So you don't have to spread terminals. You can actually plug directly in, and you can use your test meter on this side. You can also use this for pin drag testing. So on this, what I did was I came down here to the connector itself, and lo and behold, it's kind of difficult with one hand, the tool basically just falls into the connector on both terminals. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to open this connector up, and I'm going to retension the actual terminals, because I got a funny feeling the connection to those terminals there is probably not very good. But at this point, we're obviously going to change the sensor since we're right there. But yes, anyway, I'm going to see if I can find a link for somebody else that makes these tools, because I know there's another company that makes these tools. They probably made it for GM, and that's a GM part number right there. So let me start getting that apart, and I'll show you. All right, so what I did was I was able to get the pins out. I'm going to make a separate video on how to pull pins out of connectors. It's just a little too difficult in the car here. I got this little tiny, like, dental pick, and I got behind the tabs, as you see there. Right there, as you see there. I got behind the tabs, and I'm able to bend the tabs over. So I did that. So now, what I did was I actually took the sensor itself, and let me grab that, hang on. And what I did was I got the wire in there, and as you see, it's got tension on it now. It's pulling on it. So now it has tension holding it to the actual sensor itself. So let me put the connector back together, and we're gonna replace the actual sensor itself. Now, like I said, what I'm gonna do is I'll make a separate video on different connectors on how to take them apart, because you do need special tools to do it without destroying the connector. Sometimes you do destroy the connector, there's nothing you can do about it. Then you gotta replace the connector if that happens. But 99 times out of 100, you can get them apart if you use the correct tools. So, all right, let me get the connector back together, and then let's get that sensor swapped over. Oh, and real quick, on a 2-wire sensor, it doesn't matter which direction the wires go. If you had red in this one and white in this one, you could swap them. It's not going to change anything. If it was a 3-wire, then it makes a difference. So, all right, let me get this connected. Let me get this back together. Now, one thing I forgot to mention before you take that off, make sure there's no pressure in the system. GM, in their infinite wisdom, put the radiator cap underneath here so nobody could ever check it if they wanted to on the road. So I just pulled the cap off and made sure there was no pressure in the system, because you never know. Old sensor out, new sensors in. You there? It's tight, meaning it's a tight location. Now, the reason you want to make sure there's no pressure in the system, because if you go to take that out, you may get fluid shooting out at you. Now, the motor's cold, but you never know. It's still going to have pressure in it. The other thing, too, is you want to put the cap back on. You put the cap back on, it creates a vacuum, because if you pull the sensor out with the cap off, now you have an opening, and it could just flow through, and you make a mess with fluid. No fluid leaked out. I mean, it was right there to the line, but no fluid leaked out. So I'm good with that. Yeah, so now we just got to reconnect everything, clear codes, and road test it. Just in case any of you wanted the part number for the sensor. I thought I was recording and I didn't. Been doing a lot of that lately, it seems. But yeah, so I took the car for a ride. I cleared the codes. Codes didn't come back. I didn't have an issue with it beforehand. But I'm pretty confident that that loose terminal, or loose tension on the terminal, was probably the main culprit. But it's got the new sensor and all of that in there. The AC worked fine, because that was our main complaint, was the AC would cut in and out. And then accordingly too, the check engine light was on. So the check engine light was the reason the AC wasn't working. So anyway, that's pretty much it. Yeah, so that was, what do you call that? That was not overly exciting, I guess, that's for lack of better terms. Yeah, so anyway. All right, hopefully you got something out of that. If you did, hit that like button. If you could, please subscribe. All right, guys, have a great day. Keep wrenching.